Well, Facebook's so-called fact checkers have struck again, this time claiming that my report, which showed that science proves that wearing a face mask in public does very little, if anything at all, to prevent the spread of a virus, is untrue. They say that report was false. Fake news, they claim, simply because they say the data is old. They didn't refute the data, they just say it's old. Well, guess what? Today we're going to show you a study that isn't old. In fact, it's not even a year old, not even 6 months old. It's not even 60 days old, and yet it's a study from the CDC and the WHO that proves face masks do not prevent the spread of a virus. Facebook fact checkers, hold on to your seats. I'm Ben Swan, and this is Truth in Media. Well, welcome to the show. So Facebook's fact checkers have now claimed that the story I did last week, basically showing you science, a decade's worth of studies that show that wearing a face mask in public, not only does it not protect you from a virus, but in fact that cloth face masks can put you at risk for becoming sick. They say that that story is false. And so a lot of people have been reaching out to me saying, Facebook is announcing that your story is fake news. It's not true. Is it true? It's absolutely true. And I'm going to show you today not only another study that's less than 60 days old that verifies exactly what I told you, that comes from the CDC and the WHO, but on top of that, I'm going to show you why this whole Facebook fact-checking thing is an absolute joke. But before I do, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode, ise.media. It is our brand new free speech platform that was created for exactly situations like this. You know, social media companies have been purging anyone who has the gall to contest or stand up to the narrative that's running through mainstream media. Even if you have facts, even if you have your evidence behind you, you're being called a liar if you stand up against the narrative. And it's been going on for too long. ise.media is our new platform for content creators who are being purged and yet want to speak the truth to power. And by the way, we're running an equity crowdfunding campaign right now to fund this new platform. You can be a part of that. Go to ise.media. You can actually go there and learn how you can become an investor in the company and own a piece of it. It is a network that's not only for the people, but by the people. All right, back to the story. So hundreds of you have reached out to me saying that you have seen that Facebook has now declared that the story I did about face masks and the science behind showing how face masks do not prevent the spread of a virus has been flagged as being untrue. It's been flagged as being false, they say. In fact, here's some of what that Facebook fact checker wrote. Quote, "Does current science say that face masks don't work to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus that leads to COVID-19? No, this is not true. First, a video making the claim that masks from N95 to cloth ones don't work relies on dated studies." So the fact checker begins by not saying that the information in the studies is wrong or has been proven to be false. They simply say it's dated, it's old, even though in science, when you have a study that was done and multiple studies that have been done over the last 10 years, including studies from 2015, 2017, 2019, and 2020, even though they say that those studies were legitimate studies, it's old compared to what we know today. Really? Do we really think that the science behind an N95 mask or a cloth mask has changed that much? But let's hear them out. Consider the conclusions of this study from April 10th, 2020, about a month after the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. Reducing disease spread requires two things. First, limit contacts of infected individuals via physical distancing and contact tracing with appropriate quarantine. And second, reduce the transmission, probability per contact by wearing masks in public, among other measures. The preponderance of evidence indicates that mask wearing reduces the transmittability per contact by reducing transmission of infected droplets in both laboratory and clinical contexts. Now I'm going to tell you why this whole Facebook fact check is wrong in just a minute. But before I get to that, I'm going to disprove what they are saying here in terms of science, because that, as a journalist, is what I'm here to do. Not simply defend my story, but to actually, once again, reiterate the science here. And I'm going to do it with a study that is not 10 years old, 5 years old, a year old, 6 months old. In fact, a study that was done that is even newer than the one that was used by this fact checker to disprove my story. This is a study that was put together in May of this year, May of 2020, a month after the study that fact checker just listed. And this study was done with the CDC and prepared for the WHO specifically to create guidelines to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. So the claim that was made that, oh, things are different because now we're in a pandemic, this study was done in order to create guidelines specific to this pandemic, and what it finds is exactly what I told you 1 week ago. The study was conducted in preparation for the development of guidelines by the World Health Organization on the use of non-pharmaceutical interventions for pandemic influenza in non-medical settings. And here's what the study finds. The 3 points that I made to you last week, all of them held up by this brand new study. Number 1, the science shows that there is no evidence that face masks prevent the spread of a virus either by the infected person or the non-infected person. Quote, "We did not find evidence that surgical type face masks are effective in reducing laboratory confirmed influenza transmission, either when worn by the infected person's source control or by the persons in the general community to reduce their susceptibility. However, as with hand hygiene, face masks might be able to reduce transmission of other infections and therefore have value in an influenza pandemic when healthcare resources are stretched." So the researchers here looked at 10 different randomized controlled tests, and what they found and told the WHO less than 60 days ago is that there is no evidence that wearing a face mask, including a surgical type face mask, does anything to prevent the spread of a virus for either the infected person or the non-infected person. These are very important and clear words that are used here. Now, number 2, and I've heard from plenty of people on the internet, these trolls who go on and try to attack the work without ever actually looking at the science. And what they have said to me is, well, if this is the case, then why do doctors and nurses wear masks? If doctors and nurses wear masks, then the rest of the public should be wearing a mask because it proves that they're afraid of getting a virus. But that's not true. In fact, the study actually addresses that. Look at this. Disposable medical masks, also known as surgical masks, are loose-fitting devices that were designed to be worn by medical personnel to protect accidental contamination of patient wounds and to protect the wearer against splashes or sprays of bodily fluids. There is limited evidence for their effectiveness in preventing influenza virus transmission, either when worn by the infected person for source control or when worn by uninfected persons to reduce exposure. Our systematic review found no significant effect of face masks on transmission of laboratory-confirmed influenza. And then number 3, my report explained that cloth masks, the ones that most people are wearing when they go out, not only is there no evidence that a cloth mask will prevent a virus from contaminating you, nor is there any evidence that wearing a cloth mask prevents you from spreading the virus, but that actually cloth masks, according to several studies, can make you sick if you mishandle them because it makes you more likely to be contaminated by a virus. And this study, again, less than 60 days old, confirms that as well. In lower income settings, it is more likely that reusable cloth masks will be used rather than disposable medical masks because of cost and availability. There are still few uncertainties in the practice of face mask use, such as who should wear the mask and how long it should be used for. In theory, transmission should be reduced the most if both infected members and other contacts wear masks. But compliance in uninfected, close contacts could be a problem. Proper use of face masks is essential because improper use might increase the risk for transmission. Thus, education on the proper use and disposal of used face masks, including hand hygiene, is also needed. Now look, there are going to be complaints about this story. We know that that's coming. In fact, Facebook, within about a week or so, will probably claim that this story is also false. Because, by the way, Facebook's not actually checking any of these. They're having these independent fact checkers who go through and claim whether a story is true or not, and there's absolutely no accountability here. However, having said that, let's be clear about a couple things. We are not saying that there isn't conflicting information out there. There absolutely is. There have been a number of people who have sent me new studies as well, and older studies, that claim that face masks do help. In fact, there's a brand new study that just came out of BYU that says that wearing a face mask is important and it can help. We're not saying that those studies don't exist. What we're saying is there is a conflict of information here, and that is deeply significant. Why? Because it shows that if nothing else, the science is not settled here. It means that there is a clear debate over whether or not face masks actually work in preventing the spread of the virus. There is no foregone ultimate conclusion that has been made, but if you listen to the media, and if you listen to politicians, and if you listen to the Facebook fact checkers, they have decided that absolutely the science is settled, that there's only one way. And by the way, one of the claims that's made in the fact check of me is that the Surgeon General recently told people that they must wear face masks, and he implored them to wear them. That's not evidence. That's not science. That is a politician and a person in a political position making a statement. He has every right to make that statement. He's the U.S. Surgeon General. But it doesn't mean that because of his title, he is more informed than the studies that have said otherwise. And that's an important distinction to be made. What is happening here with this particular story, and where we really need to look at this Facebook problem, is that Facebook has no system in place that allows for me to challenge the claims that have been made against my story. There is no appeals process. There is no place for me to be able to say, here are the studies that have been used, or even to take this next story, which we're doing now, which I'm sure will get flagged as being untrue in the future. There is no appeals process to say, but this story is backed up by a less than 60-day-old study that was published by the CDC and that was written on behalf of and for the WHO. There's no process for that. So instead of saying, well, there's a difference of opinion and a difference of the data and a difference in terms of looking at the data, and that the science is not settled on this issue, instead, a Facebook fact checker gets the ability to come onto Facebook and simply declare by fiat, meaning without any evidence, and not based on any authority other than the authority Facebook has somehow given this strange fact checker, and is able to come on and say, I declare this information is false, it's fake. And then anyone who shares it, and I've heard from you people as well, anyone who now shares this story is now considered disseminating harmful misinformation. It is a ridiculous system. But what it's doing is it's controlling what you're allowed to say and think and believe. The facts are very clear. Study after study has shown that there is no evidence that face mask mandates will prevent the spread of a virus. There is no evidence that that science has been settled. There are studies that claim one way, and there are studies that claim the other. And that's okay. It means that the science is not settled, and that we should have a clear and open discussion of these things. Because there are those who say, if I'm forced to wear a face mask, it's bad for my health. I'm concerned about having too much CO2 in my system. If I have a pre-existing condition, this isn't healthy for me. Concerns for people with cancer who have to wear a face mask. There are concerns for lots of groups in America who say, I don't want to be forced to wear a face mask. And again, the science is not settled here. But for Facebook to pretend that it is, and for those who are in authority to pretend that it is, without acknowledging that there is a difference in terms of interpretation of studies, there is a difference in what these studies are finding, without recognizing that, in short, it means that this debate is absolutely not about science, and it's not about health, and it is about compliance.